Hello, his kids. Get up and let's get started.
He's the one who puts the moon in the sky. He's the one who hung the stars one by one. He's the one who makes the birds sing. He's the one who makes your dreams so high. He's the one who makes me smile day by day. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Spider-Man. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Superman. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Batman. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than anyone. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Bobby. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Action Man. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than anyone. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend.
I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart.
What else you got?
I've got the peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I've got the peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart.
The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Deuteronomy 31 verse 8. Now say it with me, guys. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Deuteronomy 31 verse 8.
Last time we learned about how Joshua led the Israelites through the Jordan River into the Promised Land. But today we're going to learn about the second part of that story, the Battle of Jericho. So this battle wasn't a normal battle, as you will see in today's Bible story. But before we watch our Bible story, let's go over our big picture question. And I'm sure you already know it because we've done it before. But you need to remember it because it's really important in our story today. The big picture question is, how can we glorify God? We can glorify God by loving Him and obeying Him. Now say it after me. How can we glorify God? We can glorify God by loving Him and obeying Him. Now let's go watch our Bible story to see how creative and amazing God is.
The Israelites finally arrived at the promised land of Canaan. But there was one problem. Other people were living there. God's people couldn't just walk in and set up their tents. They had to go to battle against their enemies, and they had to win. Joshua sent 2 spies into Jericho to see what it was like. The spies stayed at the house of a woman named Rahab. Rahab had heard about God and believed in him. She wanted to help his people. When the king of Jericho was looking for the spies, she hid the men on her roof. When it was safe for the spies to leave, Rahab said, "Please be kind to my family since we have been kind to you. When you attack Jericho, please do not kill us." So the spies promised to keep Rahab and her family safe, and they left Jericho. Rahab tied a bright red rope in her window so the Israelites would know which house she lived in. The people in Jericho hid behind the strong walls of the city. God told Joshua he would conquer Jericho. To do that, Joshua would need to lead the people to march around the city one time each day for 6 days. On the 7th day, they would march around the city 7 times, and the priest would blow their trumpets. All the people would shout, and the walls of Jericho would fall down. Then the Israelites could go into the city and take over. So Joshua commanded the people to carry the Ark of the Covenant and march around the city. The priests blew their trumpets. They marched around the city one time. Not one of the Israelites spoke or made a sound. On the 2nd day, they silently marched around the city again and then returned to their camp. They did this every day for 6 days. On the 7th day, the Israelites got up early and marched around the city 7 times. On the 7th time, when the priests blew their trumpets, Joshua said, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." So the people shouted and the wall fell down flat. The Israelites went into the city and captured it. They kept Rahab and her family safe because she helped the spies. God was with Joshua, and everyone in the land knew of Joshua and what he had done. By faith, Rahab believed God would win the battle, and she asked the spies to show mercy to her family and keep them safe. When the Israelites attacked Jericho, Rahab and her family received mercy and became a part of God's people. Jesus has won against sin and death. Everyone who trusts in Jesus receives mercy and becomes part of God's family forever.
See what I told you? God is so amazing and so creative. He prepared Rahab's heart so that she could save the Israelites when they came from Israel into Jericho. So her quick thinking saved their lives, and in turn, they saved her life and her family's life. So do you know that because Rahab trusted God and had faith, God honored her even centuries later? And do you know how he honored her? Rahab's name is listed in the family line of Jesus. Whoa, how cool is that? Now that's something pretty special. So, and we definitely can't forget about God's surprising battle plan. It was definitely an unusual plan. Imagine what the Israelites must have been thinking as they marched past the walls of Jericho. It's like going into an ice cream shop and looking at all the different flavors and choosing which flavors you want and then getting ready to pay. But as you pay, like get ready to pay, you just walk out. It was like doing that. Now that's just weird, don't you think? So that's probably what the Israelites felt like when they marched around the walls of Jericho. So they marched around the city, but then they didn't do anything like we saw. But just like Rahab, the Israelites needed to have faith in God and just trust Him. They were obedient and followed God's plan, even though it didn't make any sense. It was just weird, okay? But when the seventh day came, the Israelites gave a great big shout, and the walls came tumbling down. God is so faithful, and when He gives you a plan, He will do it. So God received all the glory that day when those walls of Jericho came down. Because everyone knew that God had helped the Israelites. There was no way they could do it by themselves. God had helped them. This story is a small example of what Jesus did for us. Rahab and the Israelites put their faith in God and believed that He would win the battle. And God saved them. Just like Jesus has won the battle against sin, and everyone who believes in Him receives mercy and becomes part of God's big family. Isn't that so amazing? Now, close your eyes and repeat after me. We're going to pray. God, thank You for having a plan for our lives. And thank You that Your plan included sending Jesus to save us from our sin. Help us to love and obey You for Your glory. Amen.
We're back with another quiz for you. Are you ready to answer some questions about today's story?
Yes. Your first question is, how can we glorify God?
Since this is our big picture question, I'm sure you know the answer already. We can glorify God by loving Him and obeying Him.
Yes. Who do you think showed faith in today's Bible story?
Joshua, the Israelites, and Rahab showed faith by trusting God even when they didn't understand His plan.
Yes, they trusted and believed in God even though they had no idea what His plans were.
Are you ready for your last question, everyone? Here it is.
How many times did the Israelites march around Jericho without doing or saying anything?
The Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho for 6 days without saying or doing anything. Then on the 7th day, they shouted, and God made the walls of Jericho crumble.
Wow! We hope you had a good time with us this week.
We hope you have a great week.